References, or Easter eggs, are pretty fun. At least they can be. Sometimes it just feels like a cheap trick meant to tug on your little heart. But when creatives respectfully pay homage to the media that inspired them, you just kind of feel it. You can also, however, delude yourself into believing that any small coincidence is a reference to that thing that you love. For example, the pale nail skill in Silksong. The inspiration for an attack like this could have come from anywhere, but it reminds me of Virgil's summon swords in Devil May Cry. Probably not though, right? But then you upgrade your Hunter's Crest and get rewarded for landing consecutive hits without taking damage. Pretty much how Virgil's concentration meter works. And now I look like this. Do you see how slippery of a slope this can be? In this video, I'll be taking a look at some of the more solid, almost probably definitely references and Easter eggs found in Silksong, as well as some that have the reach of Dhalsim because hey, Virgil's pretty cool, and maybe Team Cherry will add Judgment Cut next. Oh my god! Like and subscribe to help the video, and let's get started with the Metroidvania references. It's no secret that Metroid and Castlevania were big influences on Hollow Knight, and of course, Silksong is no different. I mean, take Hornet's default movement for example. It is almost identical to the way Alucard moves in Symphony of the Night. Probably another reference is the Bell Eater boss found in Act 3. This is pretty similar to the Dioram boss from Metroid Zero Mission. And it may not be the only shout out to Zero Mission either. I mean, sure, the lava escape segment is kind of like the escape segments in all the Metroid games, but do you remember the slab? Hornet loses her cloak and needle and is forced to clear a pretty big chunk of the area until she can locate her equipment and start squishing bugs again. Kind of like when Samus gets shot down in Zero Mission. She loses her power suit and has to sneak around until she can recover her gear and start blasting space bugs again. To me though, the slab might be a reference to something completely different, and it's all because of this guy. He's the one that captures you in a cage and transports you to that miserable prison for sinners, the slab. A similar thing happens in Bloodborne when you die to this guy, who will then transport you to a new area of the game, which is, you guessed it, a prison. I actually saw a comment on Reddit that said Silksong is to Hollow Knight what Bloodborne was to Dark Souls. And I think that's pretty fair to say, especially with the gameplay being more actiony and reaction based overall. What really sells this idea for me though is that the story of Silksong itself is actually pretty Bloodborne coded. Now I admit I have Bloodborne brain, but stay with me. During Act 2 of the game, we find ourselves in the Citadel, a holy place constructed for worship of the Grand Mother. An otherworldly godlike figure that used her silk to heal the bugs of Farloom. In Bloodborne, it was the Great Ones, otherworldly beings that could be perceived as gods, whose blood was used for healing. And it granted great insight and power to the people of Yharnam. They built an entire religion based around the Old Blood with the Healing Church, similar to the way the bugs of Farloom constructed the Citadel as a place of worship for Grandmother Silk. In Silksong, the bugs that were bound by the Grandmother's silk started to change. The silk did more than just heal their wounds, it bound to their very essence. It made its way inside their shells and wrapped itself around their hearts. It was passed down to their children and their children's children, turning them into puppets for the Grandmother to control. I think it's fair to say that the silk works in a similar fashion to the Old Blood in Bloodborne, which also eventually corrupted the minds of those that took it and transformed them into mindless beasts. Both silk and blood are used to heal your characters in Silksong and Bloodborne respectively, and I think it's no coincidence that this Bloodborne-ass looking enemy is found in the White Ward under the Citadel. This was the medical ward of the Citadel where bugs were given the silk, similar to the way the Healing Church of the Grand Cathedral would give blood to those seeking healing, and then conduct experiments turning them into these goofy little guys. There are other things in Silksong that remind me of Bloodborne, such as the Beast Crest, which encourages an aggressive playstyle by allowing you to enter a fury state that grants healing with each strike that you land. In Bloodborne, you have the Beast Claw, a trick weapon that encourages an aggressive playstyle. By attacking, you fill a beasthood meter that acted as an attack multiplier. Both of these weapons were seen as kinda mid against mobs, but extremely powerful against bosses. There are probably other references to the Souls series found in Silksong, like the Father of the Flame is kinda similar to this boss in Dark Souls 3. But I'm not trying to reach too hard here. I'll leave that to the internet, like with these next references that I found from around the internet, such as this possible Expedition 33 reference with the dialogue that you get when playing the Needle-In at this specific upgrade spot in Wormways. I'm not sure because I never played Expedition 33.
Fool this man!
I know, but apparently this is a quote from the game, as well as the name of a song from the OST, and you reveal this dialogue by playing music, so that fits. There's also this Studio Ghibli series called Arrietty, where the main character uses a needle, wears a red dress, and lives as a tiny creature in a gigantic world. Of course, there's the boss fight against Widow, who has some pretty JoJo-esque poses, though I have to say, just because a character does a cool pose doesn't always mean it's a reference to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, guys. Like, Bayonetta is striking cool poses all the time, but that doesn't mean... Oh, that one's actually a confirmed reference? Oh, Camilla really likes JoJo's? Okay, never mind. Everything is actually just one big JoJo's reference. But just because you can throw a Pillow Bomb into Growl's mouth when he gives you the suck, doesn't mean it's a reference to Ocarina of Time, right? I don't know. I'm starting to feel like the meme again. Let's get back on track with some more references that are almost definitely actually references. Like the Barnack found in the Putrefied Ducks. This is a pretty clear reference to the barnacle enemy in Half-Life 2. Barnack, barnacle. I think they just shaved off 2 letters and put it in the game, guys. I mean, you can even trick it into eating other enemies or items like you can in Half-Life, which is pretty cool. Another reference that isn't really up for debate is the melody that plays when you ring the old bells in Silksong. I have to look up how to say this, because I'm dumb.
This melody is called the Dies Irae.
This melody is called Dies Irae. It's from a Gregorian funeral chant, and it's often used in media to signify impending doom. It's the first thing you hear in The Shining for a reason. And if you've made it to Act 3 of Silksong, I think it fits. And finally, one last Metroid reference before we end the video, is that if you beat the game in under an hour, you get to see Hornet in a bikini. Please confirm this in the comments, drop a like to help the video, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.